Welcome, everybody, to another episode of By Design Advisors, where we believe businesses should be run by design and not left to chance. I'm here with my good friend and partner, Marty.
You can never say my name.
I always mess it
Marty.
up on the
Marty.
Marty.
I think that's. You're not even a Boston
Marty.
guy.
I think it's just the sentence the way I buddy and partner. That's Marty.
Marty.
I'm here with my good friend and partner, Marty Osborn. Marty, how you been? It's been a while since we've actually been on the mic together. Excited to chat
It's
with
been
you
a few
bit.
weeks. I think it's been almost 3 weeks while we kind of been out touring the world.
Well, you've been touring the world, went over to France for a little bit. I attempted to get to France and didn't quite make it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Delta. But that's all right. I've been here holding it down while y'all been having fun. What I wanted to talk to you about today, though, is you posted something on LinkedIn. You know, you never know in LinkedIn when you actually posted it, but I saw it this week, and you were talking about time and the timing of business, and I thought it was a very interesting subject because we can go a lot of different ways with timing. But first, just maybe if people haven't seen that post, kind of what inspired it, what did you talk about, and then we'll kind of dig into some other stuff.
It's interesting because time's always been an interesting subject because they always say, what does Marty Osborn, Dale Thrush, Bill Gates, and any other rich person, Elon Musk, all have the same amount of? And it's time, right? No matter who you are, we all have the same amount of time. So I've always kind of been interested in this concept of time. And I saw somebody post saying, hey, it's 6 months in, we're now June. Where do you stand on your goals? If you're not there, you need to get going. And it just kind of struck me like, what is June and what is 6 months? Like, what was this sort of arbitrarily date and time? And we kind of fell into that trap at Advoc. And so I wanted to kind of write about our relationship with time and why we need to change our thinking of it.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because when you start thinking about time and even hours of the day, and it's all just a man-made construct that we've all just accepted as this arbitrary success failure marker. But when you say time and your relationship with time, is it strictly just on strategic goals, or is it more just broadly comp structures and hiring and all this
well,
stuff?
we could go in because if you think about time, right? And so where I look at it, just even personally, and I talk about this with individuals, if we look backwards, the only thing we can get is depressed. Or if we look forward, the only thing we can have is anxiety. And so our balance with time is the only thing we can control is now. The only thing we can control is the process, not the results. And so a lot of that started out that way. The other thing, which is kind of interesting, as a small business, the number one mistake we made was that we paid all of our bonuses at the end of the year. And I almost could say, anybody on this call, raise your hand if y'all pay bonuses at the end of the year.
90%.
90% are. So think about a small business. January comes, we calculate, we're coming off vacation, we're probably coming off our worst cash flow, and now all of a sudden we have our largest payroll.
And
it sends companies into a tizzy, and it makes no sense. And we kept saying, why are we putting ourselves in this hole? For what reason?
And it's a bigger tax issue too, right? Because it's a big, huge payment at the beginning of the year. So you can't really get
you get into all
strategic.
kinds of battles over taxes. Do I do it before? Do I do it after? What does it do to the individual? And so we kept having to make stupid business decisions based upon year end. Now, I get the tax ramifications. And again, we can get into all that as a small business, you know, being an S Corp or an LLC and paying based on cash. There's a whole nother thing. But just as an individual, we tend to get ourselves in trouble. I'll do one other big example, and this one always cracks me up, is when do we do performance reviews?
12 minutes before they're due.
yeah, exactly. I gotta write them out. We do them at the end of the year again. Yep. And so all of a sudden we've created, again, this fictitious business review. So not only are we in our worst cash position, we're also now saying, hey, we're doing an end of year review. And what comes with that? Raises, compensation discussions,
promotions.
I mean, everything. Like, it just gets all messed up. And so to me, I really wanted to write that in what we did at Advoco to change our relationship with time as we got rid of that year-end construct. We didn't start it because, again, it goes back to New Year's resolutions. People are like, well, yeah, that fell by the wayside. Why? What does it matter? Like, what's the difference between January and June? If you want to lose weight or you want to get on a exercise regimen or if you want to start something new, what's the best time to do it?
Yesterday.
Maybe January.
Next best time is today.
But the best time is today. Why not start today? And so to me, this is I think, a subject line about what is our relationship with time. And as companies, we have to kind of break the rules.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned performance review. So again, I've been in HR ops for, well, I'm not going to say how many years, but it's a lot. Several different companies, big companies, small companies. I've never liked the performance review process of any of them because mostly it's end of the year and you're going to wait till the end of the year to tell somebody, hey, you did a great job this year. But by the way, tomorrow's January 1st, it starts all over. So they don't even get to enjoy the good. The worst is, okay, now we have a struggling employee. We're going to wait till the end of the year to kind of be like, hey, you didn't meet expectations. Well, why didn't we tell them that in June, in July, or whenever we notice them struggling? And everybody pencil whips them because it's end of the year, it's busy, and it's just, what are the 7 things I need to check? Check. Here's your annual review, and it's worthless. So I've always been a bigger proponent of taking those annual reviews and at least doing 2 a year. I prefer 4 a year, but at least do 2 a year because I think they become more valuable. So to your thing on time on performance reviews, you have to address the good and the bad closer to the action.
Yeah. Well, and again, and even think about what we talk about all the time in the personality side. So not only do we take a performance review and we throw all the year-end cash flow issues, but all of a sudden we then look at our team. Are you a high T? What are you doing? If you're an E, what happens if you're an able or people pleaser?
Well, if you're an E and then you get
it's Christmas time.
Expectation.
Am I going to at Christmas time give you a bad review?
Fire somebody at Christmas time.
And then when they ask for a raise, it's Christmas. Yeah. So now E's just like give in. And so I just think the whole thing is rethinking it. And there was a book, and I don't know who wrote it. I have to look it up, but it was the 12-week year. And it was one of my favorite books. And what they did, and they talked about this, is that they broke the year down into 12-week increments. And the reason they chose 12 is it's not, you throw in vacation, it basically is a quarter, but it was small enough so I can make a difference, but not so small that I can't make a difference. And so to me, I think companies need to start rethinking what these time frame windows are and how they work and kind of throw out this year. Well, what was our revenue per year? Who cares? Are we trending up? Are we trending down? We saw this all the time in salespeople, like commission plans and everything else, is you get to 6 months and they haven't done squat. They haven't prospected. They haven't closed any deals. And in their mind is, well, I'm going to swim the last leg. I'm going to run faster the second half and then make up for it. And you're not, because in the first 6 months, they were on vacation. They were doing all these side things. They weren't focused on what they were trying to do. And now all of a sudden they're going to make it up, and it never happens.
Yeah, and I'm going to put a shameless plug in for our company, By Design Advisors. That's why we set all of our engagements, our 90-day engagements. Because we know, you could hire us for a year, but come on, it's not going to be as effective as, hey, here's our plan for 90 days. Let's knock this stuff out. And if we both agree that it's working, we'll go another 90 days.
Right.
And I agree. I think when you start to get into how do you make an impact, we faced, in the automotive industry, I was in the staffing side of it, lower paid hourly employees, not always best with attendance and showing up to work. Sometimes you think you need 100 employees and 90 would show up, right? So one of the tricks we used, and it took a little bit of trial and error, is we wanted to basically put them in control of making more money. So we would give them an attendance bonus. Well, we started off with, hey, let's do quarterly attendance bonus. This would be great.
Yeah.
Every quarter they'll get, whatever. Come to find out, was a horrible idea because if they missed the second day of the quarter, guess who didn't really show up?
Why they don't care? Yeah,
because
I
they've
missed
lost
the bonus. Yeah.
So they were like, well, screw it. I'll just keep missing days then since I've already lost it. So then we went down to monthly. And we're like, all right, monthly, we got them. Same thing though. If they had something that happened that first week of the month, guess whose attendance struggled the rest of the month? So we ended up figuring out through just dumb blind luck that weekly was the best way.
Right.
They can control it. If something happened that week, okay, fine, they lose it. But that next week they're back on it. And it really worked out well. We would have people come to the office and say, I need more money. And first thing we would do is pull up their attendance bonus. And we could easily say, you've only gotten the attendance bonus one out of the last 5 weeks.
Here's your opportunity. Yeah.
Here's how much money you've left on the table because you didn't get to work. And so speaking of timing that bonus to the impact really, our attendance took off and we were running less than 10% absenteeism, which in the staffing industry is
You know what's funny about that is what you're trying to do is bring up the low ones. When the people who show up already just keep getting more bonuses and they're like, thanks for the gumball, right?
Yep.
Thanks. When in actuality, it's not doing what you want it to do, is to bring up these people. And I've never heard it put that way. And I love that you sat down when somebody said, I got to make more money, and you just left all this money on the table. And you want to make more money, show up.
Show up.
I mean, it's not that hard.
No, and we could easily calculate because it was just based on the hours. I mean, it was an easy calculation of here was the hours in the month. Here's what you missed. That's $700. Could you use $700 more? Well, yeah, get to work.
Right.
And we know life happens, things happen, which is why we changed it to weekly. It shouldn't happen every week. Life shouldn't happen every week.
Yeah. And I think if we went back and said, and people ask this question, like, what are the top 5 things you did right at Advoco, like that we changed things? And I think in the top 5 was when we changed like our leadership bonus from an annual profit sharing, from an annual incentive to quarterly.
Yep.
And what we had was we had not only, a piece to billable and how we were growing, but a profitability. And we calculated profitability every quarter. And when we did that, our numbers went through the roof because they knew they could affect it. And look, there are going to be times when things are going to go wrong. Things are going to go bad. And so all of a sudden, if you have a bad quarter and it's tied to the year, same thing is, well, shit, the year's gone.
Yep.
Right? It's gone. So to me, putting these smaller increments are what we need to do. And so to me, if there was one big lesson from a leadership, from an owner standpoint, is you need to rethink your relationship with time and why you do things.
Yep. Speaking of bonuses too, that's another interesting one because you will. The annual bonus, I've heard this from a lot of clients, right? I don't know, let's say there's 10 people on their leadership team and they all have their own budgets. They're all P&Ls, everything like that. They get to the end of the year and it's all based on the company, and the company maybe as a whole didn't have a great year. So they say no bonuses, but you have 3 people in the room saying, but I killed my numbers. I beat my budget. I beat my goal. Now they're upset. What I like about the quarterly based on profitability or whatever metric you pick is it puts everybody in the same boat.
Right.
And it's every quarter. I don't have to wait till the end of the year thinking I'm going to get a bonus and then not get a bonus.
Yeah. What was the Christmas vacation?
the jelly club of the month.
The jelly club of the month. But he thought he was getting a swimming pool.
Yep.
And he didn't get it. And I think that plays out. I mean, what's so funny is it's so stupid. And you watch that show and you'd be like, who does this? Everybody does it. Like it's over and over again because there's all of a sudden as a small business owner, you've got the weight of year end, a lot of vacations, your billing's down. You've got bonuses you're now paying. And then, oh, by the way, we just raised payroll 4 to 5%. And you take all of that weight and then we wonder why as business owners, as CEOs, we hate January because it's not productive. And so again, I think if we start to restructure these things, back to even the reviews, one person asked me, well, what should I do? I said, why don't you do a review 1 year from their start date?
Yep.
So what do you now end up doing? You just spread out all of your reviews throughout the year. If you're doing pay increases, they're throughout the year. You're not taking any of these big hits. You can do it. And so to me, there's a million things that we can do if we become Intentional.
Yeah, that's even performance review. Right? Let's say you want to do them quarterly. You could still do them quarterly from the dates they hired, which is doing the same thing. You're doing 1 or 2 a quarter versus 10 at the end of the year when you're on vacation and you're wanting to do Christmas. And now you're like, oh crap, I got to fill out these HR. That dang HR wants me to fill out these forms. So I do want to talk about, because you know me, Marty, everything we ever cover, I say there's pros and cons to everything. Nothing.
Yeah.
I actually got into a little bit of tiff on LinkedIn about that, about somebody was blasting.
I love a good tip on LinkedIn.
That's my first ever.
We'll have to talk about that. Like, there's some mean people out there. Like, geez.
But a certain person was just blasting video interview process and how it's awful, and it means the companies don't care about you, and it's just, if anyone's doing it, it sucks, and the company sucks. We used it very effectively, and I just chimed in with, I kind of disagree. Like, there's nothing all evil or all good about anything.
Were your hands out?
They were. I was like, palms up. I was like, I'm just saying, because it was a great tool for us. So again, I say all that just say I don't think anything's ever all good or all evil.
No.
So let's talk about maybe the cons of the 90-day. And the first one that jumps to my mind is when you and I both worked for large companies and hated it. That 90-day Wall Street earnings calls drives every decision, right? They're only making decisions if they can get their ROI in 2 months or 3 months. They're not looking at how do we get better in 2 years from now. So how do you balance, I guess, what's your advice to folks how do you balance, hey, we need to have a 2-year plan, because I think the 5-year plan's out the window these days, but still make it 90 days. Hopefully that makes sense.
I think I'm glad you brought that up, because one of my favorite books is The Infinite Game. And The Infinite Game just says, are we playing a finite game where you win and lose, or the infinite game where you're putting process in place? And in the infinite game is you can't control the outcome. So one of the things that we have to understand is, in business, we cannot control the outcome. The only thing we can control is the process. And so what happens in like 90-day sprints for corporations is all they focus in on is, did I win? Did I lose? What's the number? They never look at the process. They never say, you know what, that's okay, because what we've put in place is going to change the way we do things. And so that, to me, is the difference, is a 90-day window when it's only winning and losing versus the process. And I've seen it in sports. I've seen it in everything we do. Is we may not win the game, but are we changing our process? Are we getting better? Are we doing the right things? And so to me, as small business owners, what we have to look at is the right measurements that are really not lagging indicators, but leading indicators. Are we making the sales calls? Do we have enough leads coming in? Are we getting impressions? Like, those are all important things that says, are we moving the ball forward? And if we do, then we have a better chance at winning. And so that's where I would say sometimes people get so focused on winning and losing, which is what corporations do, and ultimately why they fail. But I think that's the difference.
It's funny, you mentioned sports. So the NBA finals are on right now, and I've been watching it. Really good series. But OKC blew the first game of the series up big. Pacers came back, beat them. Last night, same thing. It was game 5. OKC got up big. Pacers came all the way back. OKC then pulled away. And they interviewed Jalen Williams afterwards, and he basically said exactly what you said. He said, look, that first game we panicked, but here's what we did. We learned from it. We stuck to the process. We trusted the process, and we knew if we were ever in that situation again, we would respond like we did tonight. Mm-hmm. Again, they could have very easily said, well, just looked at the result and said they needed the change, but it was trusting the process and learning from it and growing. So it's just funny you mentioned that. But I think that's where you have to be intentional as well about your compensation and your bonus structure. It needs to be set up so you're driving the right behaviors. Again, I think sometimes the Wall Street stuff is these CEOs and stuff may only be there. They're 90 days. They're getting paid out in 90 days. They may not be there in a year. So every decision is just, how do I don't want to say finagle the numbers? How do we make the numbers look as
what
best
did Paul
as
used to say?
I think he said finagle.
He might have used that, finagling the beans.
Finagling the beans to make it look better for that quarter, right? Because they have to report out and you want to keep your stock price. I think as a smaller company that's not reporting to Wall Street, that's one of the pros, again, of I think being a little smaller, is you can take a little longer lens and set up your compensation structure. Yeah. So it's driving the behaviors you want. Like I said, again, at Advoc, you guys did a very good job of setting us up for, hey, if the company does well, you guys are going to do well. But
Yeah.
if the company doesn't do well, you're not going to do as well.
Yeah. I mean, the other side, if you're looking at what are things to look out for, and again, I think if you make smaller increments and you build processes, your longer term goals you're going to hit them.
Yep.
So I think that's important. But I also think like it's funny if you have investors, if you have bankers. Again, one of the problems we have is we might change our relationship with time. We may start thinking about it, but is that what our investors, they're so programmed for year end. Bankers are so programmed for year end. And so all of a sudden they force us to make bad decisions. But just because they're focused on the year end doesn't mean, again, they don't really care how you pay bonuses, how you do reviews, how you're doing. That's the details. Like that's the weeds they don't care about. I think if you want to run a marathon, or if you want to run a half marathon, you got to get off the couch, right? And one of the most, the most popular app for a while was Couch to 5K, Couch to 10K. And what they did is they laid out a process. They never laid out the time or the speed of what you're trying to do. They didn't say you're going to go out tomorrow and run a half marathon, but I got to get off the couch. And so I think if you do that, these 90-day sprints allow you to know where you are and then win ultimately in the long run.
As an owner who exited your company, I think I know the answer, but I want to ask. If you wait annually, right? So if I'm a potential buyer of your company and I'm interested in buying you in, I don't know, let's say it's August.
Correct.
My guess is, and I know deals don't move that fast, but why am I even going to think about buying you towards the end of the year? I'm going to let you pay out that big chunk of cash and bonuses and all that stuff, right? I mean, does that get into the timing of that at all?
Not necessarily. I think what we found, because when we sold, we closed September 29th. And so the one thing about finance people, like when it comes to numbers, they can accrue stuff. They figure it out. They know the bonuses. Like I also think there's a lot of people that think they're going to put something over on somebody, and you're not. It's just like when you buy a house now, they've escrowed, they know what your tax bill is, they know what the insurance, and they know how to basically say it's so many days, you were there 300 days, you now pay based on 300 days. So they figure all that out. So again, to me, when you do it in the year has no bearing, because again, the best time to sell your business is
yesterday, the next best time today.
Yeah. Or if you're trying to do something, people just, to me, those become excuses. Well, again, I want to lose weight and I'm falling behind. I'll start in January. It's just an excuse.
Or I'll start Monday, right?
Monday.
This weekend, I'm going to eat all the pizza and chicken wings and ice cream. So you're going to gain 5 pounds just to start Monday.
Like if you can't start today when you're thinking about it, how are you going to start 3 days from now when you don't really want to do it?
And we see this all the time in our business. It's one of my first slides in our first client engagement is companies struggle with execution. They all have great ideas, good people, but they struggle to GSD. And what I think 90 days helps you do as well is it's accountability with execution.
Yeah.
Like, right? It's, okay, 90 days, did we hit it? And we always ask, is it done?
Is it done?
And they get to answer one of two ways, right? Yes or no. And if it's no, it's not like anybody gets fired. But again, if you're waiting for December to say, hey, did we get our stuff done? Again, you just lost a whole year. You're probably even farther behind, where 90 days allows you to execute, hold people accountable, and pivot if need be.
Yeah. So I don't know how many, we've said 1 mistake, 2 mistakes, maybe there's the third mistake. But one of the other mistakes we find is when we initially start working with a client and we talk about these 90-day increments, they also try to boil the ocean.
Yep.
I'm going to run a marathon. I'm going to lose 40 pounds. I'm going to do it. Like, you're not going to do this stuff. And so a lot of times we kind of let companies run in the early days because they're going to realize they're going to fail because they don't have the process set up. What you really want to find is what are those milestones that are ultimately going to take you there? And 90 days is not, again, to boil the ocean. You're not changing. I don't care who you are. And that's the other thing, this relationship with time. I think in a lot of people, everybody thinks they can build, sell a business in 2 years. One person's like, I've been doing this for 3 years and I am tired. I'm like, are you kidding me? I did it for 30 years. Like, there's never an overnight success. I mean, if somebody can do something in 5 to 10 years, like, they are a unicorn. And there are unicorns. But everyday business is just, it's a grind. And we watch every day people get burned out. And they get burned out is because they're so focused on the end result. They're so focused on trying to get to the end when they forgot about the journey.
Yep. And I think it all goes back to your win with people too. Those folks that grind and get burnt out, a lot of times they're just doing it all themselves. Whether they prefer to do that or just feel they have to do that, they don't have that team around them that can kind of help get them to where they're going.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought this up because it is, I think, every owner of a company needs to reevaluate their relationship with time. They need to think about this because it will change the way I think they do business each and every day. I also think when you reevaluate your relationship with time, I think you'll treat your employees and teams differently. I think you'll start to do things that they really like. And again, your relationship with time is not closing. It's not where are we on this deal. Your relationship with time is how are we moving the train forward. And again, what do we say, be better is, one of my big principles is, am I better each and every day? How do I get 1% better? Am I better today than I was yesterday? And if you accumulate all of these be betters, then that's where winning comes from.
Awesome stuff, Marty. Speaking of time, we're probably out of it for today. I also have the urge to listen to some Hootie and the Blowfish time. But I want to thank you for everything. Yeah, your post really just kind of spurred that. And I think it's an interesting topic that a lot of folks, to your point, need to just think about. Maybe it doesn't work for you. Maybe it does. But at least have the conversation. And if we can help out, give us a call. We'll be happy to have a conversation, walk you through the pros and cons and all that fun stuff. So thanks again, Marty. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. And until next time, we'll talk to you later.